So, welcome to WIFERSATIONs. Today, I have such an amazing woman, soldier, and friend, Miss Tbm Buchanan-Moore. I have asked her to share today because I thought it was so important that we look at every aspect of being a wife. And so often, we may talk about being a wife and taking care of your children, or taking care of your duties at home, or being a career woman, or loving on your husband, arguing with your husband, having sex with your husband, going somewhere with your husband. But a conversation that is not often spoke of is what happens if you lose your husband. And so this conversation speaks to people, to women that are wives and that did not choose this particular route. And I thought, who would be better to speak to this particular situation than my good friend, Miss Tbm Buchanan-Moore. Thank you so much for joining us. I am excited and blessed to have you here. We look forward to your voice. The first thing I want to say is I appreciate your walk. I appreciate your journey. And I was there with you in your journey. And so I know that it's not a cakewalk. I know that it wasn't easy, but it is such a testament of God's goodness and his revival of how he kept you and pushed you on through the difficult time that you had of losing your husband. When I thought of you, I thought of the saying, why do bad things happen to good people? Mm-hmm. That's all I could think of. I'm like, Lord, what do I title this? How do I tag this? And it just kept coming to me. Why do bad things happen to good people? And so Miss Tbm Moore Buchanan, or Miss Tbm Buchanan-Moore, because at first all I knew was Tbm Moore. You done brought that Buchanan back. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're just gonna dig into your journey. Welcome.
Welcome. Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. As I told you, that I count it an honor. I count it an honor to always be connected to women such as yourself, and as we're being used as God's instrument, it's important that we stay connected, because he's using us as the light in this dark world. So I count it an honor, and thank you for thinking of me. Well, as my good friend Shalon, Miss Wade mentioned, my name is Tbm Buchanan-Moore, and I am a widow. And when I think about my journey, it often reminds me of how we're forever evolving, and God is always growing and stretching us as we're here to prepare us for the future. Now, along this journey, things may happen to us beyond our control, or things unexpected to birth out what's needed in you. And I know when I say that, people often say, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that God will hurt you to develop you? And that's not what I'm saying. What I mean by that is God's way of stretching and growing us is forever a reminder that we are in a temporary place. And God, although God don't do bad things to good people, yet he allows it. He allows it. And it's not because he do not love us. It's not because he don't want the best for us. It's a constant reminder that earth is just temporary. And it's a reminder. So because if we don't face certain things, not that that's God's will for us to face certain things, we will never be reminded. We'll get complacent and comfortable thinking that the evident thing of life is death. It's evident. We don't have no control over when it comes, how it comes. All we know is that one day we all will experience death, however it may come.
That's true. That's true. That's deep too. And it's something we don't look at until we're forced to look at it. Let's go all the way back though to when Mr. Moore was here. And of course, so there are many of us that got a chance to watch your love story, because it was a love story.
Yes,
and just to see you together with your 3 boys. Can you tell me about Frank? Tell me about your boys, or, let us know.
yes. I chuckle now because I have to be honest. There were times where I'm like, God, why am I in this position? Why did you take my beloved husband from me? And then God had to remind me that Frank was his before he even granted him to be mine. And God always remind me too that the kind of love that he allowed me to experience with my husband, I don't take that for granted, and I cherish that. And Frank, as many know, Frank was he was just a gentle soul. He would help. He had a good heart,
Gentle giant.
Gentle giant. That is the perfect example of who he was. And he was a true servant. He was a servant. And he really was. He in that scripture, every time I come across that scripture, there's no greater love than a friend that will lay his life down.
Yes.
So he laid his life down, and for a while that bothered me, but God had to remind me he too allowed his son to lay his life down for us. So who am I to not think that his son, his child, Frank, was not that God wouldn't use him to lay his life down for someone else. And and over time, God has given me revelation. That was my buddy, my friend. I could have not asked for a better husband. He was an example, great father, an example of how you respect, how you lead. And to be honest, I do see that extension in my boys, because they won't let me, they treat me as the way he treated me, as such. They honor me, they treat me like a queen as he did. And I'm so grateful for that. Even though we married young, we learned a lot from one another. I learned so much from him. I used to think then that I was spiritually more mature than Frank, but he was more so than me. And even experiencing that, with being with him and losing him, I learned so much about the woman that I am today. I experienced the woman I was being married in my family, and I do miss those moments, but it has grown me in so many ways that I can't even truly explain the growth, but it has made me realize the need to understand what my purpose is. And it's like, if we met, I'll never forget, I met Frank when I was 18 years old. And
wow.
And sometime I often, have this conversation with his sister and my family, like, man, I often reflect, and me and my brother-in-law, we do this often, like, man, I wonder where we would have been couple-wise, because we were so close. My sister and her family and my family, we did everything together. And I do reflect on that, but I have to often remember too that even though I'm in this position now that I never wanted to be in, we all have been chosen for a time, in any given time before we were even born. So this was established before I was born. I had to get to the point where I not so much wallow in what I no longer had, but to be grateful and appreciative of what I experienced, because that was a love that type of love that I shared with my husband. That was a love that God had to show me. That was an extension of God's love for me. He gave me my husband as an extension of his love to me. And even him being taken and snatched away so tragically, I couldn't see it then. You know, as you know, I was so numb, but I'm grateful for the love story, even though it had a tragic ending. But I won't say a tragic ending. Yeah, it was a tragic ending of my marriage, but it was a new beginning of, it was a rededication of the purpose of where God designated me to be in. Not that I could not have done the things that God have designed me to do if I was married. It's just that I did the things that was required when I was married. But now, since I'm widowed, it's the next stages of my life, if you will, if that makes any sense. If that makes any sense.
I want to, it makes a whole lot of sense. First, we want to just shout out to your 3 boys.
Yes, I love them. I'm telling you.
I love them too. I love them too. Who are they? Say their names.
They is Omar, Eric, and my Peanut. I love my boys to the core. I promise you, they are, they the best thing of me that I could have given to the world. They just, I love them boys. Because when I tell you, I could have not asked for better sons. Them boys, right. I love them boys. Yes, yeah. I do.
And they are loved by so many, and each one of them, they have like their special vibe and their special piece. You know, you see their mama in them, but then you see a little friend in them. And one of them is like really special to me, you know, because I get to be around him a little more, and honey.
And you know, I feel like that about, you know how I feel about your babies.
I know.
Already know.
I know. And so I just want to make sure I shout out the amazing 3, the 3 amigos, because
thank you.
Because they matter to this story, and they're still here to help you on your journey. And it's such a blessing that they would rise up in a way where they could be proactive in their lives and productive in their lives, because you not only lost a husband, but they lost a father.
So true.
And so, like, how did you go about making sure that they remain whole, although they lost a piece of them?
To be honest, I have to honestly give credit to God first, my mom and my family, and those who held me out, my friends and my kids, because I can recall it was times where I didn't want to get up, I didn't want to but it's something that God allowed me to experience with hearing the need that they needed me, but them yet trying to be strong at a young age. Right. It kind of kept me fighting, even when I felt like I had no strength to fight. And God knows I've been blessed. My mom, when I tell you, she labored before me every single day. She literally gave her entire life up for about a good 6 months to get me, you know, just to a point where I could just get up, you know, without needing just that extra push. So it was definitely a challenging place, and just God always had I didn't realize, you know, I do believe that situations come to not show us how, make us more stronger. It just reveals the strength that's already within us. Because we all have this power within, because we was created in God's image. So how can we not be powerful? But it situations come and it allow you to awaken, because you have no choice. Right. So that thing that's already in you begins to arise and awaken when you realize that if it had not been for God being within you, that there's no way that I can actually be standing here today. So the full credit goes to my Heavenly Father, and he positioned those individuals, my children, my mom, family, and friends around me, And God always give us what we need when we need it. And we don't even realize it, because in my numb stage, I had no idea how and the why. But now looking back, I'm like, God help me. He kept my mind. And that's something that nobody could ever imagine, how God keep, when that statement says he kept my mind, I'm a true testament of he kept my mind. I know
it's real. It's real.
Is.
You know, it's so funny. So many things are going through my head of what I want to say and what I want to talk to you about. First thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge this book you have.
Yes.
This book is so, it's beautiful. That's the best word I can put to it. It's beautiful. And it's called My Sweet Thoughts of Poetry. And of course, it's written by you. And I really want you to talk more about you, because all the time you were a poet. And I know Frank used to push that. He used to get hyped about it. So he was like your biggest fan as you did spoken word all the time. And then to see this book come to fruition, and then when you read it, I try to put your mannerisms in there. And it's just so powerful. Another thing, and we're going to talk about this, as you can see, I got some couple things I want to hit on. But one other thing you said, you spoke about something awakening you. You know, and I remember the day of the service for the great late Mr. Frank Moore. And I held your hand. We walked in. I walked in with you. I sat next to you. And you were weak, yet you were strong. You know what I mean? Everybody was just so worried. We want you to be okay. But, you know, holding your hand, of course, I felt the weakness of a woman losing a husband, but I felt the strength of a woman holding herself together through the strength of God. And all while we were sitting in the service, I don't know if you remember this, but you were rocking back and forth and you just kept saying, he don't know what he's awakened. Remember that?
Yes, I remember that. I remember that.
He don't know what he's awakened. He don't know what he awakened. And then they were doing the words, people were giving words. And you looked at me, you said, I got something to say. I got something to say. I'm like, oh God. So you get up there and the first thing you said, the devil did, you know, he tried to come at me or whatever, but he don't know what he awakened. I have never forgotten that. Never forgotten that.
Chills just thinking about that.
You getting chills. I'm getting chills because I'm standing there. I'm like, Lord, well, what did he awaken? Because you kept saying that, and it was like your mantra. It was like your theme, you know what I'm saying, for the rest of your life. And then to see you go through your life, through your journey, thank God I'm fortunate to see a portion of it. He didn't know what he awakened. And I saw in this book, you were talking about, I got to give credit to God. And one of your poems is called A Widow's Story. And you do the, oh yes, I'm all in your book. And you do a meditation after each poem. You guys got to get this. I mean, you got to get this book. The poetry, it's really like a meditation. Like you can look at this at any time. It's not dated. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like absolutely. It's not only good for this moment, but this is a lifetime read.
Yes.
And you talked about the widow's story, and in your meditation, all you kept saying is only God. It was God. It was God. It was God who kept me standing. It was God who kept me smiling. It was God who has me looking as beautiful as I am. It was God who healed me. It was God. And I honor that. Then I saw something. It said, this is from a different one, talked about a lost love. And it says, to become immune to the pain is nothing more than a product of losing oneself. Which I thought, when I saw that, I mean, it's about a different poem, but when I saw that, it's something, because so often we go through things, and you talked a little bit about it, how your mom helped you to keep going and helped you to not just sit there and die. And then I see this where it says to be immune to the pain is nothing more than a product of losing oneself. It just lets me know that you really don't get a right to die because you lose yourself, you know. And how did you know back then at such a young age? Because Mr. Frank died, he was only 38. So you guys were young, and you knew that if I just get immune to the pain, if I don't want to feel it no more, not only am I not feeling what has happened to me, but then I lose me altogether. How did you catch that?
I think that revelation, to be honest with you, came when I wanted to die. And when I even tried to commit suicide, and God interrupted me each time.
Yes.
And I can sit here and say that I'm grateful that that happened, because how dare who am I to kill God's purpose?
My God.
To kill God's purpose, because each and every one of us have a purpose. And it's not just for us, it's those who are connected to us. So I think about, had I had have died, my kids would have died, my mom would have died, my friends would have died, because even Frank dying, it's almost as if part of me died too. But God said that is not true, because the very life that I created in you, your husband fulfilled his purpose.
Yes.
He can return to me. You have purpose yet to fulfill. And I think about that, where in the times when God used me to share and be transparent to many individuals, what would have happened if I would have died and relinquished my purpose, God's purpose for my life, that all those other lives that was attached to me, and if I would have died, those individuals would have died, and then that would have been blood on my hands, if you think of that. And when God revealed that to me, it just was mind-blowing, because oftentimes we get stuck so much in the pain that we become immune, that we don't even know who we are anymore. And God had to reveal to me that He's forever developing us in every area of our lives. Because when we enter into this world, we're not attached to anyone. But then as we go along this life journey, we begin to develop those stages of who we become. We become a mother, we become a wife, we become a student, we become a career. We become those things. But God had to remind me that although you're becoming things, that does not define you, because you still the you that you was before you became anything, if that makes sense. And that was deep to me, because I'm like, wow, because we get so, especially and God do not mind, He want us to be married, because He ordained for us to be married to multiply. But He don't want us to get so caught up in one another that we forget the purpose why we were created to be here. Because there will come a time where, for whatever reason, the connection may be a departure at some point, depending on who leaves first, you know what I mean, or what happens. So it's like we can't get so caught up into not just our husbands. I don't want to just say it's our marriage, but anything, because then when we get caught up in it, we make those things before God.
That's right. That's important to know, because so often we are defined, or we define ourselves by what we're connected to. We define ourselves by what we're connected to. And it just takes me back again to what you were saying on that day, and just saying He don't know what He's awakened. And I am not 100% sure that you fully knew what He awakened, but something stirred up in you. So what did the devil do that he should not have done? What did he awaken you?
So what the enemy didn't understand, that he thought that when he took my husband, that he was going to silence my mission, my godly mission.
Yeah.
I was awakened, and even then, I didn't even really understand the magnitude of God's true power and when He's marked you. See, a lot of people always say, well, I've been called, but God already, He tells us that many have been called, but few are chosen. And when God chooses you, you can't deny, you can't run away from God choosing you, because once He chose you, He marked you. You know, you kind of how, think about when you were in a little relationship, they put the bite marks on you to mark their territory.
Yeah.
God had marked my soul before I was even born, because He chose me. He didn't just call me, He chose me. And so the enemy didn't realize that he awakened God's selection. So he woke up the spirit in me, because sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day routine, as you mentioned earlier, where we're wearing all these hats as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, and a lot of that spirit, man, it's not dead, it's alive, but some things become dormant.
Yep.
And we sit on things because we start thinking that we should give more focus to that thing, because what we focus on is what we'll be initially doing. Yeah. And sometimes, and what God revealed to me, what He woken, it's almost as if they said, don't poke the sleeping giant.
Yes.
And so God, and I always tell my kids when we faced with something, what's a small thing to a giant? Because that reminded me that the enemy knew that how precious Frank was to all of us, and especially, me and everyone whom loved him. And it's like, I was just letting the devil know, even in my broken moment, you still didn't, even, I should say in my bending moment, but I was broken. In my broken moments, you don't have the power to allow me to be broken in those pieces, because God was awakening something that only the Father could have put me back together. And I was letting the devil know, you don't know what you did. You don't know what you started, because now I understand the mission. Now I cannot do anything but do what was ordained for me to do. And so even in that moment, I was like, wow, God, even looking back, like some days I had to sit up, I'm telling you, and just be in awe with God, because the enemy thought this was supposed to take me out, was supposed to make me lose my mind. It was supposed to have my kids running recklessly, but God used us as a testament that no matter how painful a situation may be, no matter how many pieces that you may be broken into, God will sustain you and put you back together again. And that's what God did. And that's what He showed the enemy, that your ugliness can never overshadow the beautiness of God. Because it can't. Darkness can only dim light, but when God get down in when that spirit is awakened, the brightness of the anointing of that power, that mark of God, no darkness can withstand it.
Wow. And I'm looking at one of your poems, because that's what I'm gonna feed off of. And it's called Life Revelations. And the way the things that you are saying kind of just hits where it says, you have a meditation, and it says, always count your blessings instead of calculating disappointments and failures, as you will be quite surprised by all of the blessings you've already received during those tough periods of growth. Do you feel blessed?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I want you to talk a little bit more about, you talked about purpose, and you talked about what God awoke in you, and knowing that, we're out here to help people, and your voice matter, all of that. I know that you do something called the Widow's Hotline.
Yes,
You
yes.
tell
And
me
that's
about.
so, yes, that's so, that is, I took a little break, but I'm back scheduled to do it this week. God put that on my heart because
Mhm.
it's almost as if when God has brought us through some things, we have a duty. It's almost a mandate to share with others. And it was
Right.
in me not understanding. It was so tragic, so unexpected. There was no blueprint. There was no, I didn't know how I was coming out. And God pressed it upon my heart to be somewhat of a help and a guide to other women who may have been in similar situations or a loss, to just
Mhm.
share the hows, and to be honest, where there was times when I was not so good. A lot of times we want to focus when we come out of the storm. We want to just
Right.
focus on the rainbow. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. But God said, you're going to share the times when you didn't even know that you were blessed. And you're going to be
Yeah.
transparent, because transparency helps individuals. Because people, when I meet people, and sometimes God allow me to share and he won't, it depends on what situation he may have me ministering in.
Mhm.
And when they look at me, they don't know my story. So it's God has mandated me to always share and to always be a help, because we you can't sit on the progress when God brought you can't, because you have to share, because that person, like, you may be that person only lifeline. You may be that person's only way of getting to know who God is, and to really see. You may be the actual movie that a person needs to see in
Mhm.
order to encourage them that they too will come out. Because when I was in it, I promise you, I didn't ever see myself being to this place, and even yet still staying in the same home. I know
Yeah,
that's God.
I forgot about that. You're
I
right.
know that's God. And it's funny, because for years I never made any changes. And my office, my sister and I and my friend Rach, all of us, they was like, you got to start paying, you got to start doing something. So it's funny how the first room that I've ever touched is this room, and it became an office. And I said,
Mhm.
God, why did you make this the most bright? And this is the brightest room in here, because I love
Mhm.
earth tone colors. And as Rachel was hanging my blinds up, and the window, I took the newspaper off the window. I never stood in the spot where he lay. I never went to the
Yeah.
windows where he lay. And the fact that God allowed this to be the brightest room to remind me of the darkness that he brought me out, to
My God.
remind me. So now I'm no longer paralyzed when I look out that window. I have the victory, because when I look out that window, to be able to stand at that window for the very place that I met my breakdown, God positioned me in the very place where he made my come up, if you will,
Yeah,
spiritually. So it's like it's mind blowing.
it
It's
is.
so mind blowing.
Because I know the window. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that. I was trying to find some. Yeah, in one of these things, it just kind of confirms what you're saying. You got a poem, y'all. You got to get this book. It says, "Rise Up." That's
Yes.
the one.
Yes.
And you just talking about the devil keep telling me to die, but God
Mhm.
has a mission for me. Um, and then one thing I like in here, you says, "Hey, look at me now. God about to show off. I'm about to go off."
Oh,
Man, and you have really went off. What keeps you? I know you said God, but what are the things that you do to keep yourself in a place of restoration and a place of healing? Because I know that you won't ever forget him. You won't forget your memories. And every now and then you're going to have a moment. How do you keep yourself from letting moments of sadness or, I don't know I don't know all the things that you go through. I have never been a widow, but what do you do to keep yourself from living in that place, as opposed to, okay, here's a moment, I'm having a moment and I got to go past it? How do you keep yourself from just staying right there in a sad moment?
Well, you know what, I've and I have to attribute this to my sister Erica. I used to get so ticked off at her when I had my moments. And now I appreciate that now, because back then I used to want to punch her when she said that. So I've gotten to the point where even now I've allowed myself to be human, because sometimes, and I gave myself permission to have the moment, but I can't stay in the moment.
Right.
Because staying in the moment keeps me in the place where I no longer can stand. You know, I no longer, because I think of it in what helps me through moments. It's a poem, and I can't remember which one it was. It say, "Let me introduce me to me." So it's almost as if you have to introduce you to you. And when I have my moments, I allow me to have those moments, but I have to rise up and tell myself that this is just a moment, and it's okay to miss companionship, miss my husband, but understand and be reminded of the part of the living. Because when you begin to really live, you understand that that moment cannot define the life that God has given you and allowed you to be out of. So it's almost, and when those moments come, I think of it as I'm standing in the mud, just standing in the mud. I stepped in the mud with these cute, beautiful, colorful shoes on. And the more that I stand in the mud and stay, it be hard and I get stuck. So I can't allow myself to get stuck, because I cannot witness the glory of God and the good things of God if I stay in that moment. Because that moment has passed me by. I can't go back. And I've gotten to the point where it took me a long time to get to the point of accept what God allows.
Yeah.
It took a while to get here. But I even had relationships after my husband, but that was not, God had to remind me, my desire is to marry again. And I know I trust God's perfect timing. Because I've tried to do things on my own, and I've learned that hard lesson as well. You gotta wait on God, because his timing is so perfect. And so in those moments, I remind myself the goodness of God and what's coming is better than what's been. But if I can't witness that, I won't be able to witness that if I stay stuck in the mud. He's given me a new color. God has given me some gorgeous, colorful shoes to keep stepping. Give me the strength to step. So if I keep stepping back, that's going to leave me stuck in the mud. I'm at a place appreciate what I had and know that if God allowed what I have to be taken, that he is going to restore something so much better in his timing. So that's what keeps me moving, because God's timing is perfect. And if God allowed it, then you have to know it's a purpose behind what he allows. And that's what helps me through the moments.
Since we our platform, WIFERSATIONS, is designed to be an encouragement and inspiration for women that are married. I know that there will be many women that listen to this that have not been through this, but I also know it's a part of life that if you have not been through it, it very well can be you. You know what I'm saying? How they say, today may not be your day, but tonight might be your night.
Yes.
What do you say to wives now who are maybe not appreciating the moments they have with their spouse? You know, maybe they're going through some things and I'm sure you can attest to this. Some things that you thought were really important or really something, they become petty. They become of non-essential, if that's a good word.
Yes.
What do you say to women that are married now? Because you are an encouragement. You know, we would meet at the gym and you're going to spend 15, 20 minutes.
Hello.
You're going to spend 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm proud of you. Thank you. You spend 15, 20 minutes. Of course, we connect as friends, but you're also such a people pusher, and you always want to make sure, I can say for me, okay, what you doing? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? I'm waiting on this. I remember we were talking about
my book. Yes,
my book, and you like, did you write it? I mean, what you doing? I mean, and that was a couple years before it came out. You just like, and you just kept on pushing it like, no, you need to get this done. And if, you know, if I didn't look like I should look that day at the gym, okay, listen here, what's a small thing to a giant? You know, we queens, we all of that. What do you say to wives now? I want them to get a taste of what you give to me.
Well, what I would say is, and it's funny you bring this up, because every time it's God, it's divine intervention. God always put me in positions where I'm ministering to the men and the women about it. Is married people. He always put me in the midst of them, and it's funny because even at my girlfriend's wedding this weekend, God just had me talking to this couple, and they was looking at me like, is she crazy? But I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew it was God. But what I would say to the married women, enjoy the moments. Stop trying to make the moment the way that you want it to be. Stop trying to force your mate to be what you think he should be. Allow God to make him in you become what he needs you to be. I used to fuss at Frank about the socks, the ring, the coffee ring on the counter. Now that I look back, I'm like, that was not so necessary. You know, and it's like, in that moment, I would challenge every married woman and man, and share with your spouses that the frivolous arguments and the disagreements is so not worth it. Just tell yourself that what if this the last moment you have with your spouse? What if this the last memory that you will have? You know, and in that moment of those heated disagreements, I often tell people, think about that, and think about the why. Think about the why you said I do, because sometimes we get so, as years go by, we get comfortable, and we don't understand that the longer we're our mates, we're becoming different versions of ourselves as well as they are, and we want things to be a certain way, but we got to start appreciating what we have and how things are, because there's always somebody looking at you wishing that they were in that place, in that spot. So I encourage every wife to also not just so much appreciate just the moments with your spouse, but enjoy those moments of getting to know who you are, because the more you be in tune with who you are, the better you can be to your spouse. And I always say that everything cannot just be you into your spouse and your children. You got to pour into yourself, because once you pour out so much, and that's where most of the frustration come in at times with wives. We're doing so much and we feel like everyone else is doing so little. But who told us to not give time to ourselves? Where did that come from?
Right.
If you're not a better you can't be the best to anyone. And it's just enjoying the moments of the time you have with your spouse, and make those moments memorable, because there will come a time where we all gonna leave here. That's the true reality of life. And why waste time over things that's not important? It's just not important. Those petty things not important. We know men at times, they're tunnel vision, and we're multi-thinkers. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes instead of trying to, I've always realized that silence is the most powerful words never spoken. Think
Right.
about it. If you keep bouncing a ball up against the wall, it's going to keep bouncing back to you. But when you sit down, place that ball on the floor and do nothing, guess what that ball going to do? It's either going to roll around on its own or
Mm-hmm.
stand still. So I encourage you to do nothing sometimes and try and pray about it. A lot of times we want it the way we want it, and we got to understand everybody lenses see a different picture.
Right.
Everybody lenses do. We don't understand men, and men don't understand us, but we got to get to a place where we meet each other in the middle and be respectful about and be able to effectively communicate. See, some of our communications are off because you can't get anything if you don't effectively communicate. No voice will be heard, and you're definitely not going to hear anything shouting over each other. You're going to miss key points. So I always encourage people, get in a quiet place. And before you, I had to learn this along the way, and I'll be the first. Oftentimes we hear to respond, but we
Right.
never listen to understand.
Right.
That's the most encouragement. Listen to understand and not here to respond, because you're already anticipating the answer that you have forged in your own mind. And that may not, we tell a story that it can possibly not be true. And
Right.
that's when the confusion comes in that. So enjoy the moment, spend time in a moment, just have those moments, because those moments may come. They may not never be again.
Right. That's rich. That's rich, Miss Tarita. There's really not much to say after that. Of course, it's so funny because I keep hearing that, to enjoy the moments. And I'll be honest with you, after being married 28 years, you start appreciating moments and you start looking at things like, okay, that ain't even that serious anymore. Or, you know what I'm saying? You begin to learn what's really valuable and what's not valuable. What is something that's gonna, if it's not gonna make a difference, if it's not gonna have anything that's gonna have a long-standing effect, we can't worry about that. We gotta live. I am gonna let you go. You've been such a blessing. But of course, there's one more poem that's in your book that I think is so it's so you, and it's called You Don't Know Me.
Yes.
Yes, honey. And in the meditation part, and this can be your closing, however you want to close. In your meditation part, you says, it talks about how you don't know me, and you talk about how you've chosen to take the high road even when people come at you sideways. You said, but please know, I'm a pit bull in a skirt.
Yes.
I'm a Christian thug. That's
yes.
what you put. And then I said, this is her all day. Mm-hmm. And then a part of the poem in there, I'm just pulling out good stuff. It says, I have better things to do to entertain a fool than to entertain a fool. You said real people have nothing to prove. What you see is what you get. No time for faking it. That is so you. Like, it is so you. Your smile doesn't change when different people come in the room. Your demeanor has always been the same. Your voice has always been clear in thought, given with love, and all of that. If we don't know you, who are you?
Well, I would say that I like to say that to know me is to love me, but to not experience me, you're surely missing out on someone amazing.
Come on here.
I would say that I would say that I am a daughter of the Most High God, the creator of all things. I am amazing mom and friend. I am your daughter. I am your girl next door. I am your friend. I am your I'll be whatever you need to be, but I will be it unapologetically. You know,
Yeah.
I am loud, I am boisterous, but it's who I am. I like to say, I was just, my oldest, you know, he's so laid back. He was like, Mom, can you just not be seen and heard when you come in the room? And I wasn't mad with that. I just understood that he's speaking from his perspective. But like I had to tell him, I said, I am the vision of God, and I am the voice of him, of his chosen. So
Yeah.
even if I don't want to be seen, the anointing is it's going to show you who I am, because I try to live my life being who God created me to be, and being my authentic self. Because God told me a long time ago, never change yourself to appease other people, because the blessings that I'll have for you cannot find you when you're not being who I created you to be.
My God.
So I'm not going to change who I am. Now, although in life we have to make certain adjustments in who we are, to not for others, but for us to be in alignment with God. Because if the people who are designed to be connected with you, gonna appreciate who you are. And those who are not, it just means that they don't understand. Because you cannot groove to a vibe if you don't know the melody. So like attracts like.
Listen.
So people who are like-minded, like vision, like purpose, is going to stay connected to me. And those who are not going to try to, and God told me I will never, he's always evolving me, and he will never allow me to shrink down to a little bit dot of a person who do not know who they are. So I am who I am, and I'm what God created. And I always tell people, take it up with Jesus, because I'm his creation.
Yes.
So that's who I am. That's who I am.
And you know I love it. I love every bit of it. You are valuable to me as a friend. You're valuable, of course, I'm sure, to your family. You're valuable to the kingdom of God. You're valuable to the earth, because you not only can minister to the believers, but also to the non-believers, in order to bring them into the belief. Because in one of your poems, I can't remember which one it is you said, it's not subliminal. It's about Jesus.
Absolutely.
And, oh yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, okay, because sometimes we try to cover it up, or not cover it, but just, try to slide it in. No, this ain't subliminal. I ain't trying to slide nothing into it. No, it's Jesus. He's my keeper. I appreciate what he done for me. It's his grace. And so I appreciate that. I am thankful that you were willing to share your story. And is there anything else that we need to know? Can you give us how to contact you, how to connect with you? What are your social handles? How can we follow you?
Well, you can follow. I'm all over the social media, social platforms, all over the place. And it was a time where I was like, God, I don't want to be on social media. God said, oh yes, you will. And so I'm on Twitter. It's Tbm Buchanan on Twitter, and Facebook is Buchanan-Moore, TBM, and as well as Tbm Buchanan-Moore, and it's Tbm Buchanan-Moore on Instagram as well.
Yes.
And you will find me. Just Tbm Buchanan-Moore, you will find me.
Is there other books coming?
Yes. It's funny that I chuckle about the poetry book, because the book it's been taking me so long to write a widow story. I do have a second book I collaborated with 13 other women, entitled Women of Encouragement. But the book, as we always say, is a widow story.
Okay.
And for a long time, because it was slated to come out this year, the early part of this year. And so many things happened, and I kept trying to force. And God said, no, you cannot force it, because I'm still writing your story.
Yep.
So I try to put an ending. And at first I used to think, okay, is it me afraid of, once I complete this book, that I'm afraid of, I'm no longer attached to my late husband? But God said, no, there's not an ending. It's just a series of your story, a series. So it is coming, and it's like, I'm like, God, I'm following God's lead, because when I try to do things on my own, it's never to the point of, I want it to be the fullness of what he has me to convey. But as God already know, I'm just as transparent as they come.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is this: no pressure, but I'll be waiting, and I'm going to definitely be your pusher as you have been my pusher.
Yeah.
I'm grateful just for this conversation, because I believe that it will have legs, and it will go and do what it has been set out to do. And that is to be an encouragement to women first, in regards to any kind of loss. Second of all, to women who are married, just to appreciate, where they are in their life. And then to third, to widows who may have been pushed to the back burner, and people don't like to talk about it because it's scary and we don't understand it and we don't know how they feel. Well, talk about it, because everybody's story matters. And so I thank you. I thank you. I thank you.
And then before we leave, you know how much I love you. What's understood don't need to be explained.
Don't need. Yes, ma'am.
I am honored to be your friend. I'm so proud of you. I appreciate you encouraging marriages and pushing so hard for married couples, because the world try to make marriage look like it's a horrible thing to keep people lost. And I admire your strength, your beauty, and I love you so much, and you keep doing what you're doing, because you are changing lives. And just to see everything that God showed me about you, just constantly evolving, and you're staying in that thing and pushing that thing, and just being an example of how you represent yourself as a wife, a mother,
yes,
a
ma'am,
friend, everything. So I can go on,
and you don't have to.
And just understand that, even if no one tells you, you're changing lives. Amen. And who you are is so needed, and it's so appreciated. It's so appreciated.
Oh, I'm done with you.
No, I love you.
That's all I'm gonna say is I'm done with you.
I love you, and I'm waiting, because more is to come.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm so done with you. You have
YouTube.
You have blessed me.
Yes, I'm waiting on the YouTube.
I do have a YouTube channel. Hi. I do.
You need
to. Yeah, I gotta do more with it, but I do have one. What I put on there is like conversations like these and stuff like that. I gotta just see what God is saying.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You'll tell me about it.